of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
On one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. When he noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. When you are invited to someone, to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor, in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host, and the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, give this person your place, and then in disgrace you will start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, friend, move up higher, then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. He said also to the one who had invited him, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return, and you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
In the name of the God who made us, in the name of the God who came and lived among us, in the name of the God who died for us, and the God who teaches us to live. Amen. Please be seated. So the collect today says we're praying for an increase in true religion. That's a very old-fashioned phrase. true religion. I'm not sure, I have to work at that and understand what it is they're asking me. But then you turn to the Epistle to the Hebrews, and it becomes pretty clear. Let mutual love continue. Let mutual love continue. True religion. Let mutual love continue. Welcome and be hospitable to strangers. Let true religion continue. Visit those who are in prison, visit those who are in institutions, visit those who are in difficult situations, visit those who are suffering, remember those who have torture, that practicing true religion. And then keep your lives free from the love of money and be content for what you have. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have and practice true religion. Now, this is just, I'm just reading you the book of the Hebrews right now. But I think it sets up for us this idea of why are we here. And I promised you last week that I was going to continue on this theme of why are we here. So last week I talked about the people who have been here, including those of us who are here today, and how we got here, what were the paths, what were the stories. Today I want to look forward. 150 years? Maybe. 50 years for some of us? Yes. 20 years, for some of us, that will be good news. 10 years, a year, where are we going? What is the future of this place we call St. Thomas's? And how will it be what it is? So I want to start by telling you a personal story about how I ended up in the church. When I was about 12, my parents could no longer convince me to go to church. And so I just stopped going. And once in a while, for some occasion, my parents would drag me to church. But I was not very interested. I was completely enthralled by science and how the scientists were describing the world. And I didn't see any place for all of this religion nonsense. And part of the problem was, of course, that I didn't even understand what I was saying I didn't have any time for. I didn't really understand what was here. So when I was in college, I, like a lot of college students, I went through a time when I couldn't figure out who I was or what I was going to do. And a friend of mine said, "John, I'm going on the college retreat. I think you should come with me." So I didn't have anything else to do that weekend. I'd never been on a retreat. I didn't know what it was. Why not, right? So I was taken off to this Roman Catholic sisters retreat house. And we started and with a few prayers and gathered and introduced ourselves. And then everybody became silent as they were listening to God. And I had no idea what to do next. So I picked up a book or two. I picked up a book by C.S. Lewis, and in the reading of that, my world changed and turned upside down. And I can still say that the reason I'm standing here right now has to do with the fact that I read that book. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't read that book at that time, if I hadn't gone on that retreat. But the thing that I want us all to notice is that I certainly wouldn't be here if my good friend hadn't said, "Come." If my good friend hadn't said, "Come," I wouldn't be here right now. I haven't seen Mark Duncan in 40 years, but nevertheless, his impact on my life is here this very day, standing here. So why are we here, and what brings you here? What do we know about what brings people, and what will cause St. Thomas's to be what an old friend of mine used to say, a light in the darkness for many, many people? And most of the time, in some way or other, somebody that we had honored or respected said, "Come." most of the time, that's how people come to church. Somebody. Now, there are other times when people remember somebody that told them this mattered and they come searching out of church because they have a memory somewhere of someone, a grandmother, an aunt, somebody who was had impact on their life that said, this is something you really want to do. So one of the things that we learn about the future is the future has to do with both knowing, reaching out and letting people we know that we're here and this matters to us. That doesn't mean preaching a sermon, just means inviting people to be. And and how we treat people as they walk in the door. Because in the first 5 minutes, people decide whether they want to be here or not, right? It's in the first 5 minutes that they get a vibe that the community is embracing them, or they get a vibe that, why are you here, right? So in some way or other, this process of welcoming is just at the center of what Christian life is and how churches live. So I'm thinking about the ways over time that we have welcomed people and the ways that we can continue to welcome people. People come to things like the gala that we're doing in December. Why? Well, it sounds like a fun party and they want to support you. And then they come and they see, well, these are people that are interesting. I might like to be part of this. We have seen many people come to St. Thomas's because they came to a dinner dance, or because they got talked into somebody by selling them a ticket to go on a trip somewhere. And they went on the trip and they discovered that this was a community of people that they wanted to be a part of. And so they came and embraced, and some of the people that you would least expect in this church right now, that's their story about how they got here. When we offer things for children, when we make children special and uplift them and say, you really matter here, we make room for a family. And when we're impatient with children, when we're frustrated with children, when we don't like it when they speak in an inappropriate time, we close the door on a family. So it's welcoming, and it's welcoming and making a space for people and meeting people where they are and letting people be. And so this work that we do of creating the whole community of the church creates space for people to be with us and amongst us. So I want to sort of I want you all to think a little bit about how the door has been opened for you, or if you left for a while, what was the door that brought you back? And let that be a meditation of what it is for St. Thomas in the next 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, and where that's going to go from here. Now, one of the things that happens in every church, this is just true, it doesn't matter where you go to church, is there's a lot of young people. At least in a healthy church, there are a lot of young people. And then they go off and they go to college and they move someplace else, and maybe they do and maybe they don't, but we only see them for weddings and baptisms and occasionally on high holy days. That is the wave of the life of a church. And we are setting up churches all around the country because people are leaving here hopefully with a sense that they matter, that this is a place where they're honored, that this is a place that has meaning, and they're carrying that word. It's like scattering seeds. The other thing that's true about churches is it's not unusual to stand in a church and see that it is the elders that are in church. Now, in a contemporary American culture, we don't pay much attention to elders. We don't value elders very much. We kind of have moved aside. But in any traditional culture, the elders lead the way. The elders bring the truth. They bring the hope. They bring the story. And it is the elders that are here that bring the story to their children. And it's complicated because I was 50 when I got my first cell phone. I was 40, I think I was 40 when I got my first email address. And there are people in this church right now that have never known a time when those things weren't part of life. And so we live in a world where things seem to change very rapidly. And they do. They do. You know, COVID comes along. We're going to have all electric cars. You know, who knows what's next as with social media. Things are changing. But the other thing that we know is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. The more things change, the more they stay the same. People go through the courses of life. We go through the times of growth and the times of self-discovery. We go through the times of building a career and a family. We go through the times of watching the family grow and move on and building a life that's past that. And then we go through the time of approaching our eldership. These things stay the same. They're not going to change. And so the question is, what are the values that we have here? What are the values that we have here that are the values that are never going to change? It doesn't matter how much technology you have, it doesn't matter how far you travel, it doesn't matter how many fancy letters you have behind your name. These values are not going to change. And so if I come back to where I started by talking about true religion is mutual love. That value isn't going to change. Mutual love. And when people are moving away from mutual love, they are like Jeremiah says, they're building a cistern that leaks instead of attaching to the water of life that flows from the holy. There's nothing there. It's empty, it's dead if you are not involved in mutual love. Life is going to be empty and dead and full of resentments. How many people do you know that when you sit with them, all you hear is their resentments? Just resentment after resentment after resentment. It's a terrible place to live. You know, I'm active in 12 Steps, and there's a 12-step slogan that resentments are the poison that I take to hurt you. But they are the poison that I take. And when you are involved in mutual love, those things don't matter so much. They fade away. It's not like they go away, but they fade away. They're not at the center of our being in the same way. So as Hebrews says, mutual love, hospitality, remembering those who are in need, whether it's sickness or prison or torture or whatever. And then it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account, it's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make your life full. The people that are coming around your dinner table because they love you, the people that you gather with whose name you know and you can count on in some way or other, that's wealth. That's the gift of wealth. So when you come into the church, we preach a set of values which is very countercultural. It's not about, oh my God, if you get this, your life will be better. It's not about, look at that person, how much more they are accomplished than you have. It's not about this whole system is unfair, which of course it is about knowing that we are attached to the source of life, that we are attached to the water of life, we are attached to the hope of life. And it brings us from birth to growing, to finding ourselves, to forming a family and building a career, to completing that work, and to finishing our lives in elders. So we have a deep and important and lasting reason to invite people to be with us. First of all, it's mutual love, right? It is just mutual love. But the other reason is that we do know something that it's hard to get anywhere else. That what it is that we have here, you won't find much of it on the internet. You won't find much of it in the shopping center. You find it here in this depth of being, in this coming to our understanding of who we are, in building the gratitude that we have for the very gifts that God has given us in the life that we live. So I'm hopeful and I'm excited to see this church, which I have been now a part of for 35 years or something, and has gone through many moods, and will go through many more moods, and there will be different groups of people sitting in different parts of the pews. But it will all be rooted in this stream of mutual love, this stream of sharing, this stream of caring, this stream of offering people the depths of the wisdom of the way the world really is. And when we feel that, when we bring that, when we hold that, we are living a truth that is worth sharing. So I'm going to close with a very, very favorite line of mine from the Mass, and it is, offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving. And if you spend any time around me, you know you're likely to have heard me say this a lot. Offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving, because to move away from why didn't I get that and why did they do that and all of those things, to shift to the sun's out, I'm breathing, people around me love me, there's food in my refrigerator, whatever it is, to move from that place, to move our being in our place towards that understanding of how wonderful the world that we are put in is, and how much God is gifting us, and how much the planet is gifting us. When we make that shift, our world really changes. And offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving. If St. Thomas continues to offer that sacrifice of thanksgiving, it will have a blessed and wonderful future. In the name of God, amen.